We've taken many journeys over the years of Carte Blanche, and this is certainly one of the most spectacular and unusual. You're about to be dropped into a colossal cavern near Johannesburg, which is challenging and enthralling explorers and scientists with its endless darkness and finds about our stellar past.
In an undisclosed area about 45 minutes southwest of Johannesburg. In the 1990s, a farmer woke up in the early hours of the morning to the sound of a tremendous crash. When light broke, a farm worker came running towards him shouting, "There's a sinkhole in the millie field." And so there was, about 18 meters across and 50 meters deep. That's about as deep as a 12-story office block is high. The farmer got nervous and moved his house to another part of the farm. For a few years, nothing much happened, and the sinkhole was used to discard old tires and other waste. Then a few years later, there was another crash. One side of the bottom of the sinkhole had literally disappeared. It was clear that there was something beyond, something a lot deeper. Rumors of this mysterious sinkhole enticed Gauteng's Speleological Exploration Club, which consists of caving enthusiasts who explore caves in their free time. And so, one Saturday in January 2013, a group of these adventurers set out to explore this enormous sinkhole. The first one down was 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗶𝗴𝗶.
I was the first. It's not something that everyone wants to do first. I volunteered, no one else was feeling up to it.
But 𝗀𝗵's rope was just 5 meters too short.
I was almost down, and I saw this vast blackness just disappearing in there. I had to turn around and go up the rope again. I could have been the first guy at the bottom of this new world.
So Stephen Tucker went down with a longer rope. He reached the bottom.
You just see like this black space in front of you. And as a caver, that gets you really excited because that means there's a big passage there. And walking through the chamber, suddenly a wall in front of me. And I actually thought that the cave had ended and my heart kind of dropped for a moment. But after a bit more searching, a massive passage carried on again.
Was it scary?
You don't know what's going to happen, eh? So it's that bit of the fear of the unknown that you have to get over.
Stephen told me about this cave. I came out here and I stopped over there, got my kit out, almost nonchalantly walked to the side of this cave and stuck my head over this edge, the edge of this thing, and I literally went like, holy shit.
Pedro Boshoff, a master's geology student at the University of Johannesburg, is passionate about exploring the unknown worlds of caves.
What you see is a hole, and then it goes down and bells out. And way down there, you can see the bottom only just. And that's when I realized this is a very different kettle of fish.
This cave is the deepest dry cave ever to have been discovered in South Africa. Did you ever imagine that it would be as big as it was?
I don't think anybody had a clue that it was that big. And then, yeah, it turned into one of South Africa's biggest caves. Just knowing that I was actually the very first person down there, that is always special.
What did you find when you first peered inside that cave, took your first tentative steps?
After my heart beat normalized, I took my kit off. I literally walked up to the wall and stuck my hand out and touched the side of the wall, and the whole wall comprised 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃. Now, 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 is a rock that's been shattered by only one thing, shock. And immediately realized there's something very different going on here.
If Pedro was right, not only did this look like evidence of a meteor strike, but one of the clearest examples. The cave was probably formed in the aftermath of one of the biggest meteor strikes to ever hit the Earth. That was when the 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 Dome was formed about 2 billion years ago. The 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 Dome in the Free State is the result of a meteorite strike that hit Earth 2 billion years ago, creating a crater around 300 kilometers wide. It's the oldest known meteorite impact ever found on Earth. Pedro decided to research the formation of the cave for his master's thesis in geology. On the next expedition, he was joined by his study supervisor, 𝗀𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗴𝗶.
And I was just shocked at the size or the depth of this sinkhole, and then seeing how large the chambers are.
Are you convinced that it was formed by a meteor strike?
Well, we are very close to being 100% confirmed, but based on all the structures and things that we've seen, it is very likely that this cave formed as a result of structures that were formed during the 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 meteorite impact.
Carte Blanche gained an exclusive preview of this super cave as long as we kept the location a closely guarded secret. Obviously, at the moment, it's important that this cave is kept a secret. Why is that?
Especially for the danger of it. We have very specific ways that we rig the cave, it's just to avoid these loose rocks. And somebody who hasn't been here before might not know how to do that.
Exploring a cave of this size can't happen without John Dickey, the ropework and rigging specialist at the club, because it's simply too dangerous. So, John, here we are. These are nervous times.
Yeah, for some.
How has the rigging gone this morning?
Oh, no, it went well. But distracting having you guys here.
John has devised an innovative technique using his Land Rover diff lock to winch up the cavers when they're done exploring. In this trip down, we've packed extra strong lights to film the massive cave chambers. The dolomite in the cave drinks in the light, so this will be the first time the enormous spaces are seen clearly. This cave has been christened Armageddon. Armageddon, is that a fitting name, do you think?
Yeah. Down the bottom, it looks like a battle has taken place. It's just shattered rock and rubble and stuff. And yeah, there's another big cave in the country called 𝗶𝗶𝗴𝗶𝗴𝗶, so this one rivaling that. Also, when you're standing at the bottom, you kind of think to yourself, oh, am I going to get out of here?
With that comforting thought, we set off to discover the world of Armageddon, using a single line technique and a handheld friction device which controls the speed of the descent. The cavers lower themselves down. I've now come down about 60 meters into the sinkhole. It's astonishing to think that the cave only really starts here, so let's see what the cave has in store for us. A further 50 meters down a steep slope and we're in a massive chamber. Then the 100-meter or so walk begins. The terrain is rocky, with loose stones everywhere and huge boulders to climb over.
It's a very different cave to what we usually have. Usually our caves are very maze-like. This is essentially one massive passage heading in one direction. And it also goes very deep, much deeper than anything else that we've found so far in South Africa.
We're about 125 meters beneath the surface now, and it's inevitable that you start seeing weird and wonderful formations. And this is one of the more weird and wonderful. It's a stalagmite that contains high levels of cobalt and copper. The climbers here have dubbed it Frodo's sword. In some areas, aragonite crystals line the cave walls. It's from another world, isn't it?
It is.
And it's here that Pedro noticed something unusual about the rocks. They looked torn apart. Something had to explain these unique rock structures.
Pedro told me about this, and when I came to have a look at it, I stood here the first time and I saw this, I said, well, there's no doubt in my eyes that, there's something huge happened here. To break this amount of rock like this, you needed a hell of impact.
In geological terms, 𝗀𝗏𝗋, why is this part of the cave so important in terms of proving a meteorite strike?
Because we are seeing compression. Obviously, if you hit something with a big impact, you are having a huge compressional event, and what happens is rocks will get pushed away over each other. Then very soon after this happened, probably also instantaneous, we had relaxation and we formed fracture zones, which is nearly perpendicular to the direction of movement. And when this opened up, we then started forming the deeper parts of the cave along dissolution along these fracture zones.
After the impact, the cave filled up with water. Water which started to dissolve the dolomite rocks and enlarge the fractures, so creating this cave. Dripstone formations started to grow.
These bulbous structures, also known as cie𝗿𝗶𝗴𝗶. In fact, you can see the actual mud left behind within that phreatic environment. This mud clearly indicating at some point or another this whole entire cave must have been in a complete phreatic environment.
In other words, underwater.
Underwater.
To get to the last chamber found so far, you need to cross 3 gorges, or pits, as the team calls them.
In the cave we have these 3 very deep pits that are very dangerous, and the walls of them are actually very crumbly. So normally in a cave you'd go down the one side and go up the other side again. But here there's the risk of rock falls as you go down and up. So we've decided to take out that risk and just go straight across these pits.
Setting up these zip lines was the work of John, Stephen, and the rest of their intrepid team. This isn't a job for the faint of heart.
The first one is not a problem. You've just got a line on the side of a pit, and you hook up with your safety line and you walk on a little chert ledge. But the next 2, it's a zip line over these deep pits. And the only way to do it is you hook up and you just let go. Gravity then feeds you over this pit, almost halfway. So you go halfway and then zip, and you stop and you come back. Now you've got to grab the rope and literally power yourself across.
Well, we've just crossed the second pit on a zip line. The third and longest zip line is about 50 meters in that direction. We're told that it traverses a pit about 150 meters across. Stephen's been down Armageddon 25 times, and they're in the process of mapping it because they're convinced there's much more to it. Already, there are 4,000 meters of mapped passages.
There's still some possibilities to push it even further. So that's where we're working on most of it all the time. It's long days. It's 12 to 14-hour trips when we get to the back there. Yeah, starting to look at possibly sleeping over at the back to properly push it.
Yep. This is the infamous third pit. At this point, we're about 220 meters below the surface. At one time, that was a caving record in South Africa. On the other side of that zip line lies a massive cavern. Sadly, because of the scale of the drop here, this is the end of the road for the Carte Blanche team.
You cross that third zip line and suddenly there's a chamber that is 30 meters wide, almost 100 meters long, and the roof is like 40 meters above your head. I mean, you can't even compare it to a cathedral. A cathedral is small.
The exploration of Armageddon has only just begun. With every new revelation, new questions are asked, like how much more of it is there and how deep are the pits? For the geologists, the fun has only just begun.
Every time we go down there, it's like a child in a sweet shop. You know, every time we see more, because part of the problem we have is the size of this thing is very difficult for us to see things. You know, so you can't stand on one side of a chamber and see something interesting on the other side. You have to go there.
What makes it so special is that clearly this is probably in the world the best demonstrated example of impact, what we term impact-induced speleogenesis. Clearly also the oldest. I think that's rather unique.
Well, that is by far the most extraordinary thing I've ever done in my life. Extraordinary and absolutely terrifying. No wonder they call it Armageddon.